that happened, linebacker coach. Yeah. All right. There we go. All right. Welcome to the big show today. Of course, it is Friday, which means the weekend is near, and we've made it through yet another week, and then we are, moving along and moving down the road towards what I would say is the silly season of the NFL. That would be combine, leading up to the combine. You're going to hear a lot of people that are going to talk about, all the different things that they really don't understand, but they claim to understand. You'll hear guys talk about the 40 times, and this guy bends at his waist, and this guy bends at his knee, and this guy is, wiry or whatever, all the jargon they use. If you go to the combine, they're in the, in Indianapolis. All of the coaches and scouts and general managers and all those people that are sitting in the stands watching all of this stuff take place and are conducting interviews and whatnot, they all use this jargon. And of course, then, these wannabe scouts, these self-appointed wannabe scouts on social media, they all of a sudden adopt the same kind of jargon and want to say all the same kind of things, even though they usually don't really know what they're talking about. But I call it the silly season. Speaking of which, and before we get started, I got to get this one off my chest. Okay. I got to get this off my chest. So I'm flipping through the channels last night, and I landed on the Pro Bowl skills competition. The Pro Bowl skills competition, if you remember. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch it a little bit, especially since the first thing I see is Russell Wilson is going to do some sort of accuracy, event where you throw the ball to targets or whatever, and you get points for your team. And then there was some dumb thing about, one-handed catch. Then there was something where they were wearing like these huge, like plastic gloves or something and trying to dive and make catches. And then there was almost like trivia night, but it wasn't trivia. It was like, because Cam Heyward was on it, I was like, I got to see what this is. And basically Cam Heyward and whoever it was that he was with were competing against other people, and they were trying to guess the answer that the other guy would give. It's a game show. I forget what the game show is where they do that. But you've got to guess the answer that the other guy will give. I think there's a game, too, that people use, like, in couples therapy and things of the such, where you guess what the other guy is thinking or what he was saying and all that other stuff. So to me, I mean, I'm watching this stuff and I'm saying, why is it that they continue to try and go down this road with the Pro Bowl? And here's the other thing I'm going to tell you. The Pro Bowl, to me, is such a waste of time, because what are they really looking to get out of the Pro Bowl? It's just not even really all that interesting anymore. So they've changed it to a flag football game. A lot of these guys basically just opt out of it and, don't play. And then all of a sudden you've got guys like Drake May making the Pro Bowl. But to me, it used to be the Pro Bowl was a joke of a game, but at least the guys got to go to, Hawaii for a week with their families. And, at least it was still a football game. Now, it wasn't obviously a football game that is played at the intensity level that, a normal game is played, but at least it was still a football game. And the guys got to go to Hawaii, and it, meant something. Now, I don't even know what it is. What is the purpose of it? I'm watching these competitions last night saying, what does any of this have to do with playing football? What does any of it have to do with playing football? It makes no sense to me what they're doing with this thing. And honestly, the fact that it was on TV, and the fact that there were probably a lot of people watching it tells you everything you need to know about the NFL and why the NFL is number one. The NFL is number one because they can convince us, no matter what they do, it's the most important thing that needs to happen. You know, we just talked about the combine. Watch what happens in a couple of weeks when the combine happens and the ratings they get for those, 5 days or 6 days or whatever it is that they have the combine on live. Watch what the ratings are. People are going to watch it because it's the NFL. Even though it's guys running 40-yard dashes in their shorts and their T-shirts, guys bench pressing 225 pounds, guys basically running routes and catching passes, for whatever reason. It's basically like watching a watered-down football practice, but watch how many people will watch it. And it's the same thing with this Pro Bowl stuff. Last night, I'm watching the Pro Bowl, and I'm saying to myself, why am I watching this? The NFL has convinced us all that it's very, very important. So I had to get that off my chest. Now let's talk a little bit about the Steelers, and when it comes to Andy Reid and Mike Tomlin, and how similar they are, really. How similar they are in so many ways. Because I will tell you, I think one of the things that is not talked about enough is the fact that when you look at what Andy Reid did with the Eagles, it is really kind of interesting. What he did with the Eagles is he won a lot of years in a row. His last couple of years, it sort of fell out a little bit. But the reality is, if you think about it, the reality is he was 10-9 in the playoffs. He actually had a winning playoff record with the Eagles. And he did it in a way where every single year they were there. They had a shot to be there. And I think that's really what it comes clear. I just think that it's important to note that Andy Reid, when they fired him with the Eagles, yeah, he had a losing season. But the reality is, if you look at his resume, it was very, very similar to what Mike Tomlin has done. The one difference is he won the Super Bowl, and Tomlin won the Super Bowl, and he didn't. But but the reality is, if you look at what Andy Reid did year after year after year after year, I mean, the Eagles could have very easily said, well, Donovan McNabb retired. Let's find another quarterback. Let's, see if we can rebuild this thing the same way. And then what happened? That's not what the Eagles did. The Eagles basically said, you know what? It's probably time. It's been a lot of years here. He's been here since 1999. This was 2012. 13 seasons, 14 seasons, whatever it is. But if you look at it, I mean, they played in the NFC Championship game 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. He was 10-9 as a coach in the playoffs. I don't think there's any question. I mean, he was 130-93, and if you add his playoff record in, he was 140 and 102 with the Eagles. They could have stood pat. They could have. But they decided not to. Why? Because they felt like it was a good time for a pleasant break where Andy Reid, they knew full well that Andy Reid would have his choice of jobs, which he did. He had his choice of jobs, and he took that were available. He took the Kansas City job, and, the Eagles moved on from him. And I think that's one of the things that I look at. I'm always, amazed at the fact that Steelers, there are a number of people that are Steeler fans that still are convincing themselves that one of the reasons you can't move on from Mike Tomlin is because he's a good coach and he'll have his pick of the liver. Anybody, will do whatever, he'll be able to get a job in a minute. Well, maybe. Maybe. And he probably will. But what does that have to do with the Steelers? Like the Steelers, and again, Art Rooney did a couple of sit-down interviews this week. It's very clear that there's no sense of urgency. There's no desire. There's no passion at all to move on from Mike Tomlin because they believe that they've got a really good coach. Now, if you look at what happened, they pushed Reid out the door. They hired Chip Kelly. His first year, he got to the wild card game. Second year, he was 10-6. They just missed the playoffs. Third year, kind of fell apart. They fired him. They brought in Doug Peterson for 5 years. In his third year, or second year actually, he won a Super Bowl. They were 7-9 2 years in a row prior to winning the Super Bowl. Then he lost the division in the divisional playoffs. Then he lost in the wild card. Then he went 4-11-1, and they fired him. Now they have Sirianni, and of course Sirianni has gotten to one Super Bowl already, and now he's in his second Super Bowl. All I'm trying to say is, like, the idea that you can't move on from a coach, everybody that makes that argument that you can't move on from Mike Tomlin because, well, he's a good coach and he'll get scooped up in a minute and all that other good stuff. I mean, Mike Tomlin is what, 8-11 in the playoffs. Andy Reid was 10-9 and they got rid of him. And all that's happened since Andy Reid left town, right, is they've played in 3 Super Bowls and they won one. The first one in franchise history, by the way. So you look at what they've done, right? If you go back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Go back 8 seasons. Go back 9 seasons. 10 seasons. If you go back 10 seasons, they've had 3 losing seasons in the 10 years, but they've been to 3 Super Bowls. You mean to tell me if you're a Steeler fan, you'd rather do what you're doing? No. There's not. I can't believe there's anybody out there that would. But here's the thing. Anytime one of those people that defends Mike Tomlin wants to make a defense of Mike Tomlin, do you know where they always go? Well, you don't want to become the, Jets. You don't want to become the Raiders. You don't want to become, name awful franchise. Carolina. As if there's no evidence at all. None that if the Steelers made a change at coach, that they would fall apart. None. The evidence is very simple to me. They have a track record of doing things the right way. So I think when I hear people, I almost cringe when I hear people make these arguments. I look at Andy Reid and I say, you know what? He is in the Super Bowl, and guess what? The team he's playing against is his old team. It worked out for both of them. And the thing about it is, if Mike Tomlin moved on and went somewhere else, maybe it works out the same way. Maybe he goes somewhere and he gets, new energy, and the place he goes, you know what? They're able to draft their Patrick Mahomes, and things go well for him. But here's the thing. The Steelers organization is set up for the coach to be able to succeed. Let me say that again. The Steelers organization is set up for the coach to succeed, not fail. So if he went to the wrong place, got a bad patch of players and wasn't able to get out of it, guess what? All of a sudden, he probably wouldn't have his never had a losing season streak intact. And so, to me, I think the most frustrating thing about this week is that Art Rooney spoke at least 3 times that I saw and said the same exact thing every time. That basically Mike Tomlin is his coach. He's doing a good job. We need to support him better and all that other stuff. That's really, to me, what it comes down to. So I would just tell you, it becomes really, really, really into focus when you take a look at what's going on with Andy Reid, right? Because at the end of the day, Andy Reid, has a chance to win some Super Bowls. He's a good coach. Yeah, he got his quarterback, and that helps. But you know what? He won some playoff games, and they weren't horrific when he had Alex Smith. They weren't great, but they weren't horrific. They got to the playoffs and stuff. But now he has Mahomes. Obviously, it's a good coach now has taken it back to a different level. Well, the bottom line is, Mike Tomlin had a lot of years with Ben Roethlisberger in his prime and didn't have the kind of success that they're having right now in Kansas City. So I would be really interested if Mike Tomlin went somewhere else to see just how good he actually would be. Now, there was a little bit of news today with the coaching staff. I'm sure this one is going to really, really, really set you over the top. We've solved it. This is the missing link. This is the key for them to win. Inside linebackers coach, Aaron Curry. Now, most of you out there, even those of you that were really good, big fans and people that observe the Steelers, if I said to you, who is Aaron Curry, you'd have no idea. But he was with the Seahawks, and then I guess last year came here. Spent 2 seasons working with the inside linebackers. Well, he's going to the Jets, and I think what's a little bit alarming, he's going to the Jets to be the linebackers coach, which means it's pretty much a lateral move. Again, it could be a situation of where philosophically he and Terrell Austin and Mike Tomlin didn't see eye to eye on some things. It could be where he feels like going there is a better path, right, to becoming promoted and becoming a defensive coordinator. And all that. Could be that. Could be money. Now, I think he's going to be the linebackers coach. I think, right? Because if he's going to be the linebackers coach, he's right now he's the inside linebackers coach. In order to move, although his contract is up, so probably not, but I was going to say it can't be a lateral move if he's under contract, but I think his contract is up. If you look at what he did this year, Landon Roberts has been okay. Patrick Queen, I think we probably look at and say could have been better, should have been better. Peyton Wilson had some really good moments. Seemed like he developed into a reasonably good inside linebacker. But it's really hard to judge a position group within a defense. It just is. So I can't sit here and tell you, that Aaron Curry was good at what he did or not good at what he did. He seemed fine. It's one of several coaching moves that are expected. But again, I say this all the time, and I mean this. I don't know that you really know what a position coach means to a team in the grand scheme of things. There are people who swear they know, they insist they know, they insist they have an idea of. There's others that basically are more realistic and basically just say, you know what, I have no idea. This obviously isn't going to be a move that changes much about the Steelers. They changed their coaching staff a little bit here and there. It is what it is. So it's the first move. I will say this too. One of the other discussions that happened this week was the size of the Steelers coaching staff. It's not as big as many other staffs. It just isn't. They don't spend a lot of money on a bunch of different assistants and analysts and all that other stuff. And there are some people that think that this holds them back. I will say this. It helps, obviously, to have extra hands on deck. But the reality is if you've got a really good offensive coordinator and a really good defensive coordinator, you don't need 65 coaches on your team. So Well, some people are out here saying basically, that the Steelers need to get more coaches. I just think they need to get better coaches. And pardon my yawning, by the way, but I haven't been able to sleep the last 4 days. I got pinched nerves. I got bulging discs in my neck. So my shoulder and my arm and everything else hurts. Dr. Vince, I go to Dr. Vince. He puts me back together, but in this infant stage of it, it's still in a lot of pain, so I'm not sleeping enough, and that's a problem. So I've been a little cranky this week. So, by the way, the game is always on at Archie's. Get down to Archie's on Carson Street. Archie's is the home of 80-cent wings Monday through Thursday, home of the Paul Zeise grilled cheese sandwich, and also it is the home of games all the time, every day. The loyal sons, the Pitt of Pitt, I guess they're a group of like alumni that get together, and they are always there to watch Pitt games. West Virginia's got a big contingent. And so I think if you think about it, get down to Archie's, and when you're there, say hello to Archie for me. Now, switching gears a little bit, because, we've basically talked a ton about the Steelers and football and all that other stuff. But if we look at baseball and we look at the Pirates, because it's not that far around the corner, spring training begins. And when spring training begins, obviously pitchers, catchers report, all that other good stuff. The Pirates will be who we think they are, so to speak. And so I was looking at what they've done in the sort of the off season, how they've done it, and what they're going to be going to war with. And I got to be honest with you, I'm not sure how anybody could be really, really all that excited about what's going on in terms of if you just look at the lineup. If you look at the lineup, I'm looking at the DH position. Are you really going to run Andrew McCutchen out there 150 times, 140 times? You've got some other guys like Nick York and Bryan Reynolds, but for the most part, Andrew McCutchen is going to be manning your DH a lot. He's old. Not that he's washed up. He still gets on base, but, he signed for whatever it was for a reason. It wasn't a lot. So you've got McCutchen in right field right now. You're looking at either Adam Frazier, who, he's a nickel and dimer. We understand that. Or Nick York, who is another one of these guys that's a prospect kind of player that's maybe, just sort of now scratching the surface of being in the major leagues or whatever. But, of course, he's a guy that has been completely overrated by people that are just so excited all the time about the Pirates that they don't live in reality. Maybe he'll be a good player. I got to see it first. Okay, in the middle of your lineup, you're still going to have Oneil Cruz. He's obviously got to get a little bit better at hitting, making contact and striking out last. But for the most part, he's coming along very well. He's your power guy, and he's a good enough hitter that you should be okay with that. Bryan Reynolds is a good baseball player. He's getting, to the point where maybe he's starting to be on the downside of his career, but he's still a really good baseball player. Hits the ball reasonably well. You can put him in a couple of different positions in the lineup, and you go from there. After that, though, you've got Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, who is now your everyday shortstop. Even though he's never really been an everyday shortstop in many ways, like he's always been sort of a utility guy. And so, that's mostly because of the fact that I don't know that he hits well enough and consistent enough to be that guy that mans your shortstop position and I don't know that he's a great fielder either. He's a good fielder, but he's not great. and you want up the middle, have great fielders. Brian Hayes, Nick Gonzalez, good luck. You've got Joey Bart at catcher, was last year a mirage. Is he going to revert back to what he was before he got here? I don't know. I don't know how anyone could know. You've also got Andy Rodriguez coming back from being injured. You've got Henry Davis. I'm looking at this lineup, and I'm like, I don't know that, I don't know that it's any different than it was last year, other than you have Spencer Horwitz now. And if that's the case, you're not good enough. You're not good enough. If you construct the lineup, obviously they like to lead off McCutchen because McCutchen gets on base, right? I sound like Billy Beane in that movie Moneyball. He gets on base. Then you're looking at somebody like, I don't know, Bryan Reynolds batting second, Oneil Cruz batting third, maybe Nick Gonzalez batting second, Oneil Cruz batting third, Bryan Reynolds batting fourth. I don't know. Last year you at least had, the idea that Rowdy Tellez could hit one out of the park. So every so often he could be your cleanup hitter. But I'm looking at this lineup, and I'm saying to myself, who in their right mind thinks this is going to be an upgrade over what they did this past year? They're still going to have way too many games where Jared Chiarolo is playing a lot. Isaiah Connor Falefa is going to play way too many games as a starting shortstop. I think he's a good little, crafty baseball player. Wonderful. He's a utility guy. And I think what happens with a guy like him is he gets exposed. Spencer Horwitz, it's an upgrade, I guess. But, I just don't get excited by these guys that they sign to these, low money, sort of 1-year deal type things. I just don't. And so I feel like, this is like Groundhog Day with this team. I think the other part of it is if you look at, Jared Jones and even Skeens to some extent, there could be a little bit of revert back to the means a little bit. Bailey Falter. Now, does he revert back a little bit? And then, of course, they're throwing Bubba Chandler already in the rotation. How do we know he's good enough? You hope he is. But again, I just look at this lineup, and I'm really, really concerned that they're not going to make much progress from last year. They're not going to be a team that gets to, move forward and have a chance to go, win in the playoffs. I don't even know, if they have a team that's going to be able to get to, I think their over-under win total in Vegas is 78.5? I think that might be high. So I'm looking at the Pirates, and every year I go into the offseason, I say I'm going to have an open mind. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that they haven't even earned. I'm going to try and make sure that the Pirates, when I analyze them, I'm not just throwing dirt on them. I'm actually trying to take a look and say, okay, this is what they did, and this was good, and that was good. Like last year when they signed Aroldis Chapman, I thought, well, from a baseball standpoint, that's great, but there's got to be about 5 or 6 other moves with it to make it make sense. Otherwise, you just spent $10.5 million on a luxury item for a team that's going nowhere. And that doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't. It never has. You basically spent all that money on a guy who is a option as a setup guy last year because you had Bednar. Now he became the closer, so it was good that you signed him. But what good did that do when you were losing most games going into the ninth? I'm just telling you, I think that, I try and have an open mind with the Pirates, but some days they make it really, really difficult to do. All right, well, enjoy your weekend. We will do this again on Monday, and we'll have more to talk about, obviously, from the weekend. And until then, have a good one.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.